Okay. Right. Okay, thanks for coming. Today is the second book discussion on the foundation of Buddhism written by the Rupert Gethin. We're having this discussion in the US Zen Institute, Maryland. Okay. The date is today is October, which date are we? October the 4th. Okay. Now let's just, I guess, do you have any questions with regard to the last Tuesday when we have this book discussion?
I just had a clarification question, but I may be getting ahead of myself and maybe it's not appropriate, but you said something that was very intriguing to me last week when you referred to galaxies and about reincarnation and reincarnation taking place in different galaxies. And I wanted to make sure I understood the term galaxy in the way that you were using it. And my understanding of what you said was that you were referring to galaxies as star systems, different star systems throughout the universe. Is that correct understanding?
Well, the thing it is why I mentioned about a galaxy rather than like the Earth, or usually we translate the word loka as a word, right? But I think in different contexts, in the commentary, the way that they mention is that when a person's been, say that somebody who have the good quality and then been, kind of predict by the Buddha that the person will become a Buddha in one of the life, when the person will be, become a Buddha. And it's said this way, say that person will not born in this kind of world, and it's not going to born in other kind of world. No, sorry. The person will only born in this world where he was predicted he will not going to born in other world, and he will not going to born in any, these two words between there's a darkness place. So then I take that as a kind of course there hardly any people discuss about that. I took that way when he mentioned that in between there was a darker place, that even implied that in between, a place that there was some space, that some places, a lot of places there that they could live. Then that kind of beings would not be born in that place. So I take that as a galaxy to another galaxy. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Yes.
So would it be correct then to say another dimension? Would that be another way to say that? Or?
I think dimension, of course, is nowadays. I maybe best to say this way. I believe that to understand galaxy, definitely for now science. I'm not really know much about dimension, but I think that. Basically, maybe best to say this, we have to, the way that if we only use 3 dimensions to understand the galaxy, I think is definitely is not, it's insufficient to do that, that I can say, yeah. But I would not translate that way. I guess in the old day, even maybe the Buddha somehow understand there was something different, but because of there's no such kind of well-formed knowledge pervaded, in those days, I guess, then it's hard to discuss about that, right? Right. Okay. Right. Any other questions that 我有没有杯水啊? Okay. Right. Then why don't we just read a little bit? Because if I would just talk all the time, you feel very tired too, I think we can start page 16, right? Now, I think today we need to finish the legend of the Buddha, but I think it's very important because just like any religion, when you start to learn it, then you at least have to see how academics look at it and how the the legends talk about the Buddha, So first is about the sources, okay? Anyone want to volunteer to read first?
The centerpiece of the legend of the Buddha is the story of the Buddha's life from his conception to the events of his awakening and his first teaching. This narrative must be accounted one of the great stories of the world. Part of the common heritage of Buddhism, it is known throughout Asia wherever Buddhism has taken root. The core of this story has not a few of its details are already found in the Sutra and Vinaya collection of early Buddhist texts. See next chapter. In literary works and in sculptural relief that date from 2 or 3 centuries later. We find these details embellished and woven together to form a more sustained narrative. The classical literary telling of the story are found in Sanskrit texts such as Mahavastu, the Lalitavistara, in Asvaghosha's poem Buddha Charita, and in Pali Nidana Katha, which forms an introduction to the commentary on the Jataka, a collection of stories of the Buddha's previous birth. New narratives of the life of Buddha has continued to be produced down to modern times.
Okay, I think basically, I think basically here I wanted to say that what is the main sources you can find about the Buddha's story? Actually, like Mahavastu mostly is very popular in the Mahayana Buddhism, and as well as the Lalitavistara, and then even the Jataka, and as well as the Asvaghosha's poem, Buddha Charita. But if you look at it, the poem, the Buddha Charita, which is very popular, especially when you learn Sanskrit, when you want to learn Buddhist Sanskrit, and then because luckily this Sanskrit extends to, we have the Sanskrit fragment also extend actually, and it's beautiful written because for us we are definitely not like really even for Indian people, I want to say those who are really good in Sanskrit, they always admire the way they read the Sanskrit, the poem, as a poem. But some people suspect that actually the Buddha Charita was written by Asvaghosha, just Ma Ming Pusa in Chinese, is very popular. It's actually he read that it's mainly for the pilgrimage purposes, and some people have a new idea thinking why the Buddha Charita. Buddha Charita literally means the act of the Buddha, mean the life or the motion of the Buddha. So it's one of the source, but I think some other source I could refer is also actually lots of commentary sources talk about the Buddha, which I just mentioned. We just discussed about the galaxy, and then that was not mentioned here, and there are other sources. Definitely there are some other sources about the life of Buddha you could find in the Sutta, mean what we believe the earlier sources, more reliable sources as well. And so it kind of like, even if you look at the literary study, so unlike the other religion, actually this is Buddhism have a very, very rich, have a very rich actually record, even from early sources about somehow, not the full part of it, but at least part by part of the life of the Buddha. What did he struggle, what kind of life he used to be before he renounced his life and so forth, and definitely then you have a very rich account of how did he struggle and to become a Buddha and so forth, and afterward, what did he do, and that definitely is abandoned even in the very earliest sources. This is definitely for academics very important, because it's not like somebody going to invent it later because out of certain reasons. And it's and also one interesting thing is about we in Buddhism we have different sources, like because Buddha actually, I don't know whether here mentioned it, I forget now, but the Buddha actually didn't agree that in order to propagate or to introduce Buddhism to people, or for people have to practice, the Buddha limit people just only using a certain language. But the Buddha encouraged actually they have to use different language, their own native tongue, to propagate Buddhism. And that's really important understanding also. Why I want to say this, because later on we do have different source of translation from different, from different languages. Even China too, they translate the text into Chinese were not only from Sanskrit but from many different other languages into Chinese too. But then you could find a lot of identical ideas over there. Okay, I mean this is just, of course, not many people do this research about the life of Buddha, but I guess for whatever, because Buddhism has so many things you could do research. I mean, but then however, and also it's a one big job if you want to do, because the sources are so much, Okay. Anyway, I guess if no question, we go to the next paragraph.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tibetan tradition structures the story of the Buddha's life around 12 acts performed by old Buddhas, while Theravadic sources draw up a rather longer list of 30 features that are the rules, Dhammata, for the lives of all Buddhas. The substance of these two lists is already found in the oldest tellings of the story. What follows is in effect the story of these 12 acts and most of the 30 features, told with a bias to how they are recounted in the early discourses of the Buddha and Pali sources, together with some comments aimed at providing a historical perspective on the development of the story.
Okay, I mean, it's just like, I mean, definitely, and that is also one of the ancient ways, because how you relate to Buddha's story, you must list out what is the main thing, what is the important thing, But I guess this book trying to use, in order to make it simple, so just trying to use a Tibetan way, just to read out the 12 acts performed by the Buddha. I mean, you have chapter 1 to tell what kind of thing about the Buddha, chapter 2 to tell what kind of thing about the Buddha. Those, they believe is very important, right? Okay, unless we have questions, but I think I like to know, I'm sure that so far people know what mean by the Pali sources, right? Okay, you don't have question on that, all right. Now we back to the other, we come to the point about the legend. So, and then we can have a little discussion when we read a few things. Could you just read that, the legend? So, yeah.
The Buddhist and general Indian worldview is that all sentient beings are subject to rebirth. All beings are born, live, die, and are reborn again and again in a variety of different circumstances. This process knows no definite beginning and ordinarily no definite end. The being who becomes a Buddha, like any other being, has known countless previous lives, as a human being, an animal, and a god. An old tradition tells us that the life before the one in which the state of Buddhahood is reached is always spent as a god, in the heaven of the contented.
It's all right, just read. You don't have to read the bracket one. Yeah.
Here, the Bodhisattva, the being intent on awakening, dwells awaiting the appropriate time to take a human birth to become Buddha. Dwelling in the Tusita heaven is the first of the 12 acts. But how does the Bodhisattva come to be dwelling here? The answer, in short, is that it is as a result of having practiced the perfections over many, many lifetimes.
I think, okay, good. Anything that need to mention? I think the first thing here is the first act is to understand before it is according to at least the present Buddha. I mean the one that we know, Sakyamuni Buddha. So in the old tradition said that before he came down to the earth here, so he was born in the heaven called the Tusita heaven. And so that's why still now, even in the modern time, or I mean in the present times, still people believe that the future Buddha also was born in the Tushita and waiting for the time to come down here, and because it is believed that because when anyone that who been predicted or anointed by the Buddha that he will become a Buddha, and he still have to practice the perfection here called paramita, okay? For the perfection for like 3 asankaya and then 600 aeons and kalpa. It is a general formula. And then the 600 kalpa. I don't know how to translate this anyway. I forgot already. I hope that they have Aeon. Aeon, how to pronounce A-E-O-N? A-E-O-N-S, right? I'm not sure how to write the word. The problem is now that we so much rely on the computer. Not like no. Asankhya or asankaya. It's either you could say asankaya or asankhya. It's okay. So, anyone know what is a paramita? I think it's the next one you're going to mention a little bit. Okay.
Perfection.
Yeah. It's very popular in Mahayana Buddhism. When people learn Mahayana Buddhism, they always talk about paramita. Okay. But the meaning, if you take the word original meaning, okay, actually usually in English translates perfection. It's also, when you take a whole word, it means perfection. But in Chinese usually like to understand the way based on the Sanskrit word and root, It means you have to go beyond. Paramita means go beyond, okay? So it's as in past participle of other side, mean you go other side. It's in the Indian way of always express that you're from this shore and then you go to other shore, mean you attain Nibbana, the final liberation. So because of that, Chinese always thinking that the paramita is the most important thing, which is, I mean, if you look at the legend or the Buddhist understanding, actually it always refer to people who, of course, paramita is necessary for everybody, but it's basically the main purpose in early Buddhism. Talk about paramita is only for someone who vowed to become a Buddha, and then all these times, big, long, almost uncountable, long of reincarnation. It's the main purpose is to perfect the paramitas, mean that the perfections. Okay.
So that have a specific definition, right?
You mean what kind of paramitas are they? Yeah, in Pali Buddhism they talk about 10. But in general, in the so-called Northern Indian Buddhism, so I don't mean the North Buddhism. I mean the Northern India. Mean even now they are extinct already. Those kind of, from the earlier time, they talk about 6 kind of paramitas. Yeah, but when you compare the 6 kind of paramitas and 10 kind of paramitas, they are almost the same. Maybe just one are different, and the Pali have 3 more. And like making a determination is 1. Even though if you look at the Chinese, when I say Chinese, I mean the Northern school, and then they also have say you need to make the resolution, but they never put it that as one kind of paramitas. Anyway, it's kind of like it's a kind of like the necessity quality for the Buddha, for someone who want to become a Buddha. Yeah. All right. Let's just look at a little bit ago. So long ago, yeah. Can you read it? Yeah.
Long ago, in fact, incalculable numbers of
eons. Yeah.
young they lived in a city called
Sumedha,
who encountered a former Buddha, the Buddha
Dibankara. Dibankara. Yeah.
This meeting affected Sumedha in such a way that he too aspired by becoming a Buddha. What impressed Sumedha was Dipakara's very presence and sense of his infinite wisdom and compassion, such that he resolved that he would do whatever was necessary to cultivate and perfect this quality in himself. So Metta thus set out on the path of the cultivation of the 10 perfections: generosity, morality, desirelessness, vigor, wisdom, patience, truthfulness, resolve, loving kindness, and equanimity. In undertaking the cultivation of these perfections, Sumedha became a Bodhisattva, being intent on and destined for Buddhahood, and it is the life in which he becomes the Buddha Gautama. Sometime in the 5th century BC, that represents the fruition of that distant aspiration. Many Jatakas tales of the previous birth of the Buddha Bodhisattva
Recount, I think. Yeah.
How the Bodhisattva gradually developed the perfection. Such stories, like the story of Buddha's life, are deeply embedded in Buddhist culture and serve to emphasize how for the Buddhists, the being who dwell in
Tushita,
one intent on Buddhahood is a being of the profoundest spiritual qualities.
Okay, thank you. Well, few things to say about that. I guess, I mean, this is definitely a very popular story. I mean, I don't mean that you have to understand, especially we have one not necessarily from Asia originally. So even in Asia, actually, lots of people didn't know that story. But at least for people who really study Buddhism, they definitely know. Previously, there was a person as an ascetic, meaning the person doesn't know any religion, but he have a very good quality. And he almost can become an arahant. And then at that time, he met a Buddha called the Dipankara, 就是燃灯佛 in Chinese. And he met the Dipankara, the Buddha, and he was inspired by his appearance and his wisdom. So here I mentioned already. So that person is called Sumedha, 就是善见吧，应该是哈。So and of course he was a previous life of the Buddha, okay, of the what we know the Buddha now. So and then one other interesting thing here is about the Bodhisattva. So since then he is called as a Bodhisattva. So the Bodhisattva way in early Buddhism mostly been understood means somebody who intended for the body. Body means wisdom, you know. Somebody who's intended for the body, means intended for the wisdom. But definitely later on, this term Bodhisattva or Bodhisattva in Sanskrit, Bodhisattva in Pali, so kind of like more take it like means somebody who has the wisdom, somebody who has the body. You get it now? For example, like Avalokitesvara, Guanxin, it's the most popular Guanyin in Chinese culture. So the way they definitely understood is not somebody who intend for the body, not somebody who's intent for the wisdom, but somebody who has the wisdom, you know, like the Bodhisattva. So that's certainly Mahayana mostly taking in the one that a being who has the wisdom. Mostly Mahayana take it that way. But mostly early Buddhism take it Bodhisattva means somebody who intended to have the wisdom. The problem is not about the wisdom. No, the problem is not about who intended to has a wisdom or because that person has a wisdom. The problem is how we understand the wisdom. That's the reason why, I mean, in Mahayana, this I don't think that you need to know now, but I mean, at least I mentioned, but that's the reason why in Prajnaparamita, like Boye Boromi, so it's the definition of the Prajna, I mean the wisdom, are quite different. I mean, the same thing is about wisdom, but there's a still slight difference between, I would say quite different actually. Because one refer to the wisdom of the Buddha, one refer to the wisdom of the liberation, you know. It's quite different. I mean, that's the reason why the Mahayana really emphasizes, no, we are talking the prajna, I mean the wisdom. It's not just the wisdom for liberation like Arahat. So it's the wisdom has to become the Buddha, or, you know, okay. All right, and the other thing is about the Jatakas. Please, even though you don't necessarily remember, but I mean, for those who are want to learn Buddhism in English, definitely few terms you need to know, like Jataka. 就是中文 is called 本圣经，好，听过吗？啊 ，OK。I just write now, say in Chinese. Jataka is interesting. I mean, usually it's very popular in the Theravada country for the kids. If they want to read the story for the kids, that's the one they read. Because Jataka is always like the kid's story about like the Buddha was born as a rabbit, how brave he was, or he was born as a tiger, but he was even very kind, or sometimes he was born as a merchant, or sometimes he was born as a royal family. Even sometimes he was born as a kind of like a not very fortunate family, but then he through his kind of you know, working hard and so forth, so he become very successful in the business, or then he also recognized that spirituality is very important like that. I mean, kind of like, really like a kid's story, but some are really funny. When Sagarananda became a monk, actually, that was the first, it's the second one, I guess. He had to recommend to read something, otherwise, you know, I think the second thing I asked him to read is a Jataka story. So, do you want to say the most one you love the most, the mosquito one? Yeah, share one, the Jataka story. So then at least you have an idea what the Jataka story actually is about. It's very popular, but not in China. It's very funny. Yeah.
It is said that.
No, you face to him. Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the stories which I found kind of humorous. Well, it's a long story, but I'll make it short. But so you know, Jataka story is a whole bunch of stories about Buddha Sakyamuni's past lives when he was still a Bodhisattva. So in one of those lives, he was ascetic with a group of his disciples. They happened to pass by a village, and at that time they saw a group of people they acting foolishly because they want to declare war on mosquitoes. So they take out their bow and arrows and went into the forest and tried to shoot down the mosquitoes with bow and arrows. And instead of shooting down the mosquitoes, of course, obviously they wouldn't be able to shoot down the mosquito with the arrows. So instead, they shoot themselves, because some people just aim at the mosquitoes and they wouldn't be able to shoot it. And then instead, he shot other guys. So and at that time, the Bodhisattva, along with his disciples, happened to pass that village, and they saw those people dragging themselves back to back to their houses. And then I think, if I remember correctly, and somehow related to a story like
the mosquito on the smith.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
And one of the disciples asked the Bodhisattva, saying that why they're acting so foolishly. So the Bodhisattva replied that they're not only foolish this life, but in their past life they're also foolish. And there was a blacksmith, I think. They're trying to make a axe while his sons was watching, and a mosquito landed on his front head. And because he was still hitting the iron and stuff, and so he asked his son, "Oh, please get rid of the mosquito for me." So his sons thought he was really smart. So he picked up an axe and said, "One blow will just do it." And he hit his father with the axe. So that's it's a way to tell like the people can get really stupid, I think. So, but you know, it's a black humor. So okay.
Anyway, so that is I think Jataka story has almost more than 200 something story over there. So But definitely later on in the Buddhism, like in a certain tradition, like Saravasti Valadhan, a northern Indian kind of Saravaka school, but they do have a debate about whether definitely they need to recognize Jataka as the legitimate Buddhist text in the Buddhist canon. But anyway, but then at the end, the final conclusion is that it should be the legitimate canon anyway. So anyway, that's just one other part. But as I say, the Jataka is very popular, not necessarily in China, but it's definitely very popular in the. If you go to like the Theravada country, that you always see a lot of storytelling. Mostly they are from Jataka story, yeah. And then definitely they are very popular because the kids, when they were young, they used to learn those stories. And but unfortunately, not many people writing that story. But there are lots of very funny stories over there. Okay, let's go to Jataka. Yes.
One of the questions that I had when I was reading this, when you talk about original sources or any source really, how are those most often transmitted through the ages? The earliest text, or is there some written form, or is this by word of mouth legend?
Okay, I can answer you that, but actually we will come to the second chapter later. Yeah, but then we can just, since you asked, I could just say, well, that is a big story. Firstly, we must understand how the text been transmitted down in the earlier time. It definitely was transmitted down by orally. And you have to understand the Indian culture. Even in my time, but now definitely changed a lot because of computer. So the monk, when they were young monk, they become a young monk, the first thing they need to recite the thing exactly then the teacher recite, And the teacher duty is every night, almost every night. And definitely like the way we train in those days, every night, almost, even not every night, unless the teachers are out. Otherwise, you've been always assigned by one of the elder monks who recite a text, and then the student first thing is to recite the text under him. And then the next day morning, we have to gather together, usually do a little short meditation. And the morning time, they are asked to recite the text. What they, not necessarily what the teacher asked them, but then other texts like Dhammadipa, certain texts anyway, and which is very important, they have to learn, recite it. Then only officially record we know, the first text being written down is before the Christ. There was before 1st century, because in Sri Lanka they have the war, and then the monk was worried that then the monk will all die out, and nothing remained. That's why they commit themselves into written on a kind of leaf. Next time I can show you. For the next class I will show all these things. So they commit them to write it down on the ola leaf, a kind of palm leaf, actually, dry palm leaf. But now in the modern research also, we can, even if you go to like a Royal Academy in England, and then they still have this research even in Washington State, in Seattle, University of Washington. I've been there also, and then one of the professor there also, he's in charge of like recovering the translation. Of course, first they have to recovering the manuscript, because they all are broken, but they were not from the palm leaf, but they were from bark, kind of tree, the skin of the tree, and they were originally kept in Afghanistan, and before the Buddha in Afghanistan was bombed and surrounding there, and they found a lot of this kind of the text were kept in kind of like a kind of what do you call that one? Urn, yeah. And then because that area is very dry, there's one part good way of, because it's dry, so it would not easily to broken down. So and some are from that, and very similar to Pali language, but it's not Pali, it's not Sanskrit. This is why now we know definitely what the early sources we have about the Buddha say. You are not allowed. Yeah, you cannot say I want to only use Sanskrit to transmit Buddhism, because that's a kind of hierarchy kind of thinking. My language is the best. That's the language of the God, and that's what the Buddha trying to lower it down. So then you do find lots of different dialects being kept there too. Yeah, and those have been dated back, some of the manuscripts even before Christ too. So even for archaeological evidence, you could find now that the text been written down even before Christ also. Anyway, we will talk more in the next chapters, because the next chapter is about the Buddhist canon. So yeah, it's about a canon. All right. So we know the Jatakas. Now, can we just read the next one too?
The appearance of such a being in the world may not be unique, but is nevertheless a rare and special circumstance. For Buddha only appears in the world when the teaching of the previous Buddha have been lost, and when beings will be receptive to his message. So it is said that surveying the world from Tusita, the Bodhisattva, so that the time had come for him to take a human birth and at last become a Buddha. He saw that the middle country of the great continent of
Jambudvipa. No, it's all right. Just learn how to pronounce the Sanskrit. Jambudvi.
Oh, okay. Jambudvipa.
No, best to learn to read it because there's what do you call, one straw.
So long vowel.
Jambudvipa.
Jambudvipa was a place in which to take birth, for its inhabitants would be receptive to his message. The Bodhisattva was conceived on the full moon night of Asada. That night his mother, Mahamaya, dreamt that a white elephant carrying a white lotus in its trunk came and entered her womb. The second and third act, descent from Tusita and enter his mother's womb, had been accomplished.
Okay, right. So I think that this statement is very important because, as I say, from early Buddhist perspective, like it say that the Buddha only appears in the world when the teaching of the previous Buddha have been lost. And this is definitely has been accepted by whole early Buddhism. And this teaching is, when I say early, don't think it because just only Theravada. Even in all kind of Sravakayana school traditionally, because do you know what I mean? I mean, when we say Sravakayana, you remember the term Sravakayana? Do you remember the term? But it's equivalent term in usually Mahayana called Hinayana, but I don't like that term because it's not a very respectful term. So even in Mahayana also they have a revived the term also called as Sravakayana. Okay, it means those who hear and then become like a Buddha. It's all actually agree that the Buddha only appear for the Buddha only appear in the world when the teaching of the previous Buddha have been lost. So that's the reason why you have the teaching of the 正法, 相法, 末法. Have you heard about term? Means the teaching of Dharma still are prosperous, and the teaching of the Dharma, the teaching of the Buddha become less prosperous, or you could say moderate. And then the declining of the teaching of the Buddha, that's the third part. Okay. And then we will discuss that later. I think they mentioned. In Mahayana, take that way. When I say Mahayana in a certain manner, especially in Taiwan, or when I heard in recent, not only recent, actually from the last few centuries. So and they take that as so-called declining of the Buddha teachings is because people don't understand teaching so well now. So that's why they should learn Amitabha Buddha and go to Buddha in the Western land. But that definitely is not the original way of explaining. The declining of the teaching actually refer to because declining of the Arahant. Mean the top-notch people are declining. Because those top-notch people are not there. And of course then you don't have a top-notch people teach you that really how to practice well. Right? And then you lost something. Maybe you gain something but you still, that's why it's declining. So I take that more I definitely believe that because even in any subject it's the same. When you have top-notch people really are very good at the subject, become less and less, of course everybody will just struggle in something superficial, right? All right, anyway. So I think that I don't have to say anything about here. Okay. Why don't we just skip a little bit? Even I will just say it, but we don't have to read it. But you know. So I mean, the next one is about. So according to this Theravada tradition or the Pali tradition, it's the Bodhisattva was born in the full moon. I was conceived in full moon. That means in July, right? And then after fully, you know, conceived, then he was born on May. No, May. In May, yeah. So that's the next one he say. So he carry his mom. The Maya is the mother name. Okay, his mother name. Carry the Bodhisattva in her womb for precisely 10 lunar months. So that's why the full moon of the Vesak. So in the May is a big day, Vesak day, that's what we call. Actually the word Vesak is just a moon name. It's a month. In Indian way, they call the moon, different month, different name. Okay, I cannot remember the name anyway. So like say the July, they call it Asata, they call it in the May, they call it Vesakha or Vesak. Okay. And but you know, traditionally the queen, or even in those areas, that when they have a gift of a children, they have to go back to the mother's side, maternal, you know, parents. That's why the Maya had to left. But on the way going back to her kingdom, that means her parents' place. So anyway, she found that she had to give birth already. So it was under a kind of tree called Sala tree. Anyone know that Sala tree? No, in Chinese called Solo Shu. You don't have it in America. It's well, I think next time I will show you a picture if I found it. So it's a kind of tree anyway. When they blossom, they have a lot of very red colored flower. It's very complicated, beautiful flower, very big. Some flowers very big. So it's called Sala tree. It's interesting, even this tree, not only the Buddha was born, but even this kind of tree was the Buddha when he passed away. He was also lie under the same tree, also solo shu. Okay. And when she felt that the pain in her womb, so she hold on the Sala tree, and that's how she gave birth. She was the Buddha was gave birth while her mom standing. You know. Okay. Okay. And then it is said that the Bodhisattva, when he was born, he walked 7 steps to the north and say that I'm the chief in the world, I'm the best in the world, I'm the first in the world, this is the last birth, there will be no further rebirth. I think this definitely is a lot of discussion. How can a baby was born and say that? And of course, then a lot of people will be so screaming, right? I mean, even I think nowadays, don't say even in old day, when they have a lot of different kind of belief in there. But this record actually is very popular in Chinese. But I don't know why, actually I didn't ask that time. I should have asked him why he did write this, put it here, because I don't remember Pali have these words there. But anyway, definitely this is very most popular. They're saying the Buddha was born, say, 天上天下唯我独尊 okay. And, but to walk 7 steps, don't be so surprised. Actually, a lot of people also trying to say, because traditionally say that when he was born, the kid was born from the womb, and he started to walk 7 steps, and he was that's how they make it, you know, like how to call this fairy story, like a fairy story, that when the baby was born, when he walks on 7 steps, the step become a lotus blossom out like that. So if you look at any clips about the Buddha's born, they always make it that way. Okay. But I have to say that none of the record in early record saying that he was saying that I am the chief in the world, and also now a record saying that when he was born, so he every step on the ground, you know, the lotus turned up, the lotus blossom like that. You know, that's just a kind of artistic kind of imagination. But how do you understand the 7 steps? Anyone?
The 7.
I think the 7 steps, there's no question. But how do you understand the 7 steps? No. Actually, there are research about that too. How do you understand the 7 steps? In the old day, of course, always believe that just that's it, nobody question about it, and don't question about it also. In any religion, you always have something like that, you know. Well, you know, how it carried out, maybe you want to tell the kids the story, you make it more, you know, more like, more, how to say, more wondering, right? And then it passed out to even not only kids, actually, even adult like that kind of thing.
When I read this section, this line really captured my attention.
Yeah.
The 7 steps, and then to the north also.
Yeah.
I thought it was very interesting. I don't understand what it means.
To the north always mean that north represent the religious people, spirituality in India. Yeah, yeah. The east always refer to the royalty, mean you can be a ruler. Yeah, okay.
Is it talking about the 7 Buddhas before him?
No, actually the 7 steps is like that. It has much to do with, you know, in Indian, consider the cow, you know, the kind of a certain type of cow, considered as the reincarnation of the powerful God, like Vishnu God. So, and you know that how the people think about whether the cow was born was healthy or the most strong one, the best one, is, you know, when the cow was born, you know, and the cow walk 1 or 2 steps, the maximum they can walk is 7 steps. Yeah. If the cow walks 7 steps, that means that is the best of the best. Okay, because you know when just born he could walk 7 steps, but usually just 2 steps or 1 step it falls down. Yeah. Okay. So that has to do with the farmer and how they understand the cow, and the cow is as an holy animal. Okay, don't laugh at that way. You have to understand their background, not our background.
So this idea could be added much later based on their social or cultural understanding of a
because I mean, even the dream, we don't know, I know, but then of course in Indian culture, even Asian culture always think, like me, some people think I'm Greek monk, I don't think so, but they always like to ask my mom, some people think, you know, when you were born, you were son, do you have any dream? Do you have any unusual sights comes out, maybe the outside center, or maybe, you know, anyway. I wish my mom could just tell some fairy tales and people will find more fascinated, you know. So maybe my mom forgot. Maybe there's really some good side. I don't know. All right, you know. Okay, then we know that we come to the 4th part. That means the legend of Buddha's birth, you know. I think let's just finish this. Let me see. We can take a little break. Okay, why don't we just take a little break now, just for like 5 to 10 minutes. If you come back earlier, then we can start. And yeah, thanks. Yeah.